Hello, everybody. My name is Sylvia Barbara Soberton, and today I will be talking to you about the sketch in Royal Collection inscribed as Anne Boleyn Queen. Is it Anne Boleyn? Let's find out. So, this sketch is currently in the Royal Collection. It's also often referred to as the Windsor sketch, and it's inscribed in the left upper corner Anne Boleyn Queen. Now, the sketches in the Royal Collection were identified by Sir John Cheek, who knew Anne Boleyn personally. The inscriptions are not contemporary to the 16th century, they were added in the 18th century, but they were based on Sir John Cheek's identifications. Now, John Cheek made two erroneous identifications. As you can see here, he identified one woman, the one on the left, as Mother Jack, and the one on the right as Lady Berkeley. Now, those two women appear in the family of Sir Thomas More by Hans Holbein. The original of the painting is no longer extant, but we know it through a copy from the late 16th century. Now, these two women standing here are Margaret Giggs, Sir Thomas More's foster daughter, and Elizabeth Downsey, Sir Thomas More's daughter. So those were not the Mother Jack and Lady Berkeley as identified incorrectly by John Cheek. However, John Cheek made only two erroneous identifications. And it is highly unlikely that he would have made the incorrect identification of Anne Boleyn, as argued by Dr. Starkey and John Rowlands in 1983 in their very influential paper entitled An Old Tradition Reasserted, Holbein's Portrait of Queen Anne Boleyn. Now, as Starkey and Rowlands pointed out in their paper, Cheek's career was founded on the Boleyn connection. He knew what Anne Boleyn really looked like, and of all of the identifications he made, it seems quite inconceivable that he would have been mistaken about this particular one. Now, if we would want to compare this sketch with the inscription Anne Boleyn Queen to what Anne Boleyn really looked like, do we have any other contemporary portraits of her? Well, luckily for us, we do. There is a medal that was struck in 1534. It has Anne Boleyn's motto, "The Most Happy," and it is her undisputable likeness. Unluckily for us, the medal is damaged, and we can only see certain clues about what she really looked like. So, oval face, this pronounced chin, long neck. We know that this is Anne because we have her motto, "The Most Happy," and the letters are inscribed on the medal, A-R. They stand for Anna Regina, Anne the Queen in Latin. Now, the medal that you see here on the right is a reconstruction by British sculptor Lucy Churchill, who did a wonderful job recreating this painting, this medal. So we can't be sure that it's what really Anne Boleyn looked like, but it's a good indication, I think. So what did Anne Boleyn look like? People who never saw her described her variously as either very beautiful or very ugly. Now, Swiss theologian Simon Grenier, who came to England in 1531, saw Anne Boleyn and described her as young, good-looking, of a rather dark complexion. John Barlow, Dean of Westbury, who was Anne Boleyn's protege and who owed his career to Anne, described her in 1532 as very eloquent and gracious and reasonably good-looking. Now, probably the most famous description of Anne comes from the Venetian ambassador who saw Anne in 1532 in Calais. Now, he described Anne as follows. Madame Anne is not one of the handsomest women in the world. She is of middling stature, swarthy complexion, long neck, wide mouth, bosom not much raised, and in fact has nothing but the English king's great appetite and her eyes, which are black and beautiful, and take great effect on those who served the queen when she was on the throne. Now, Anne Boleyn's eyes were probably her most attractive feature. Many other contemporaries commented that she had beautiful black eyes. She may have also had some form of a squint because in 1535, one of the women who hated Anne described her as a Google eyed whore. Now, when it comes to Anne Boleyn's hair color, the woman in this sketch, Anne Bollein Queen, has what appears to be blonde hair. Now, Nicholas Sander in 1585 described Anne as having black hair. Thomas Wyatt, a poet who was in love with Anne in the 1520s, described her as a brunette. Before her marriage, Anne wore her long hair loose and interlaced with diamonds and other precious stones. And after the wedding to the king, she wore French and English hoods. Now, if we return to the hair color, Dr. Kate Hare, the senior curator of prints and drawings from the Royal Collection Trust, pointed out that Holbein was using various chalks to denote Anne Boleyn's hair color. So he used black, brown, red, and the original hair color in this sketch would have been much darker than what we see now. So it's not to say that the sitter is blonde. Now, where are we? Here. What about the double chin? It's a problem for some people to see that this sitter has what appears to be a double chin. Now, Nicholas Sander in 1585 wrote that Anne was rather tall of stature, with black hair and an oval face of a sallow complexion, as if troubled with jaundice. She had a projecting tooth under the upper lip, and on her right hand 6 fingers. There was something swollen under her chin, but what? I do not know. She covered the upper parts of her neck and chest to hide it. Now, David Lewis, who translated Sanders' work with certain errors in 1877, wrote that there was a large vein under her chin, and therefore, to hide its ugliness, she wore a high dress covering her throat. But the large vein, or wen, manifestly doesn't appear in Sanders' original work. There's only something swollen under her chin. And a high dress covering her throat is another example of translator's invention. In original, Sander wrote only that Anne covered the upper part of her body, but didn't specify what did she use to do that. Now, during Anne Boleyn's time as queen, partlets, standing collars, were highly popular. And we have examples of this in these two portraits of Susanna Horenbout by Hans Holbein, dating to about 1540 to 1543, and Mary Fiennes, Baroness Dacre, from the later 1540s. The standing collar evolved with time. It could have been also buttoned up, but it usually could have also covered the neck. Now, David Lewis's erroneous translation of Sanders' book may have been influenced by a contemporary record of Anne Boleyn's coronation. Reporting on the ceremony, the author of a hostile anonymous newsletter wrote that, and I quote, "The crown became her very ill, and the wart disfigured her very much. She wore a violet velvet mantle with a high ruff of gold thread and pearls, which concealed a swelling that she has, resembling goiter." Now, in the French original document, it says that scrofula made her look monstrous. Now, scrofula was also known as the king's evil, and it is a historical term for a form of tuberculosis that affects the lymph nodes, particularly those in the neck. Symptoms include swollen and often painful lymph nodes in the neck, which may become abscessed and form draining sores. In the 16th century, it was believed that the touch of royalty could cure scrofula, leading to the practice of the royal touch, where kings and queens would touch sufferers in a ceremonial, symbolic act believed to cure the disease. Now, in her controversial piece entitled Royal Bodies, Hilary Mantel suggested that if this is true and if we put together the reports of a swelling in her throat and with the description of her by one contemporary as a goggle eyed hoe, then we are looking possibly at a woman with a hyperthyroid condition, a woman of frayed temper who lives on the end of her nerves. Now, Stark and Rowlands, whom I mentioned before, propose that in the drawing, the double chin is so pronounced as to suggest that such a swelling, as was described in 1533, was indeed present in the throat glands, and it is indeed partly hidden by a high neckline in the sketch. Now, another question that I would like to address here is Anne Boleyn wearing a nightgown in this sketch? A lot of historians believe that this informal attire is a nightgown. And in fact, Anne Boleyn did own several nightgowns. Privy Purse expenses for the years 1529 to 1532 give us some clue about what those nightgowns could have looked like. In 1532, for example, Henry VIII gave her a nightgown of black satin, lined with black taffeta and edged with velvet. In 1536, shortly before her death, Anne bought 8 nightgowns, 2 of which were embroidered, and another one was in russet, trimmed with miniver. Now, the sketch of Anne Bollein Queen is not too dissimilar to a miniature from the Horenbout workshop of Henry Fitzroy, Duke of Richmond, Henry VIII's illegitimate son. Now, as you can see, Fitzroy is wearing a rather informal attire as well. It may be a chemise or a nightgown opened in front, and he is wearing a nightcap. Now, I like the suggestion of Dr. Kate Hurd, the senior curator of prints and drawings from the Royal Collection, that this sketch here of Anne Boleyn may have been intended to be a miniature, to be held in a hand and not displayed on a wall. And if she is wearing indeed nightgown, then this may be in fact true. But I think that perhaps this is not a nightgown at all. If we compare this sketch of Anne Boleyn Queen with a miniature by Holbein of Margaret More Roper, we can see certain similarities in the way the two sitters are dressed. We can see that Margaret has this shirt or chemise fastened on her neck. She has a furred tippet around her shoulders, and she's wearing an English gable hood. Now, the sitter in this Anne Boleyn Queen drawing wears rather similar clothes. She's wearing a coif on her head, but coifs were usually worn under English gable hoods. So perhaps if there exists a original painting of this, perhaps the clothes would have looked so much similar to what we see in Margaret Roper's miniature. I think it's highly likely. Now, thank you so much for watching this video. I wonder, what do you think about this sketch? Please feel free to leave comments down below, and I hope to see you in the next talk. Bye bye.